talking about rookie quarterbacks in rookie camp, and the Vikings' J.J. McCarthy was among them this past weekend. His new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, talked about the progress he's already seen from J.J.
He's doing a great job handling everything and just enjoying seeing the process, rep to rep improvement, taking coaching points from Josh or Wes or myself. And just continuing to build on techniques, fundamentals, rhythm, timing, all the things that go into playing quarterback in our offense. And excited. It's just fun to be out here with him on the grass.
Dano, where should McCarthy and O'Connell be focused this summer?
Yeah, throwing guys open. Covered is open in the NFL. And I think the big thing for J.J. McCarthy is you want to throw with more anticipation, but it's really hard to throw with anticipation in this league without really high-end touch. That's not something that was a big part of his game. So the more that they can get him to say, well, coach, that defensive back is on that wide receiver's hip. Yeah, he's covered in the Big Ten. That's open in the NFL, bud. And you got to throw him to a spot that is going to get him even more open. And to do that, there has to be different layered and types of throws. And I think that's the focus, the starting focus point for them in Minnesota.
Well, he's in a good place because you think about this. He was coached under Harbaugh, who was a former quarterback. O'Connell is a former quarterback. So they both get it. They'll figure out what he can do well and build the offense around that. But you're right. He's going to have to throw it at different levels. He was not a volume passer at Michigan. They ran the football. They were a play-action football team. But I think this is a good place for him.
And the hard part of this all is you want to throw with anticipation, but that's a byproduct of touch. And that's really what they're going to have to. He's such a young, talented guy with a powerful arm. Leaning into a little bit more of throwing it to a spot more so than driving it to where they are, I think is going to be when you'll see that talent start to shine a little bit more.
Yeah, should be fun. Hey, this has been fun. I'm glad you got me dressed down.
Yeah, and I think Minnesota Vikings and Kevin O'Connell are perfectly suited to get J.J. McCarthy where he needs to be. Now, I know how they talked about that he wasn't a volume thrower in Michigan. And a lot of people use that as a way to ding him. And I talked about this in another video, I just wholeheartedly disagree with that criticism. Because you do what's asked for you. Even if he had a cannon, right? What Michigan needed from J.J. McCarthy was not to be a volume thrower. They didn't need that. And clearly they won. If Michigan didn't end up winning the title, and they needed J.J. McCarthy to be something that he couldn't be, then you could make that argument. But that's not the case. Patrick Mahomes has won Super Bowls throwing significantly less times than the quarterback across from him who loses. Does that mean that Patrick Mahomes isn't a good quarterback? Of course not. So you do what your team needs you to do. You do what the game needs you to do. You do what the opponent needs you to do. And that is something that Harbaugh is great at. Harbaugh is great at scheming and game planning, also culture building, of course, but he's great at letting the game dictate what he needs from his team. That to me is where Harbaugh really excels. And it's not that easy. It's easy to say, just let the game come to you. Or, you need to understand that they love to take away, the run game. So you got to pass. Those things are all easy to say, but it's a lot harder to do in practice. And so, again, Harbaugh knew what he had in his team and pulled the strings in a way that led them to be very successful. So I always take issue when they try to pull down J.J. McCarthy for not being a high volume thrower. And like I said before, there are plenty of quarterbacks in, I guess both technically the NFL, but also college, who are high volume throwers who completely failed in high school, in the pros, completely. So just because you are a high volume thrower doesn't automatically make you good. And just because you're not asked to throw the ball 10,000 times a game doesn't automatically mean that you can't or that you're not good enough. Not to mention, it's not good football to have Patrick Mahomes throw the ball 50 times a game, 45 times a game, even though he can. Tom Brady, any of these guys. It's not actually good, sound football. And we know that. We've seen that again and again and again. We do like in the more modern day NFL is more pass happy, but you still need a balance. You without a doubt. And that's what Harbaugh was able to do with J.J. McCarthy. And I think exactly what Dan Orlovsky was talking about throwing guys open, I think Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive mind. I think because he's like a little bit more laid back and he's in Minnesota, he doesn't get the same recognition that, say, the Sean McVays, the Shanahans. Like, he doesn't get that much of a buzz. And I get it because those guys have either won Super Bowls, been to Super Bowls, big personalities, right? The moment either of them decides to retire, they have like a $300 million contract waiting for them to do commentating and stuff like that. Kevin McCarthy doesn't necessarily, Kevin O'Connell doesn't necessarily have that. And I get it. He's a different personality. He like preaches, kindness and more patience. And that's where I think JJ McCarthy is really going to succeed. I think we've seen other quarterbacks in the past, like a JJ McCarthy, who weren't these like big, gigantic arms throwing the ball all over the field, nonstop, big and flashy. When we've seen these more, I don't know if reserved the right word, but just less flashy quarterbacks enter into the NFL, so many of them go to just weird offensive situations with like old school coaches that don't really know how to bring the best out of those quarterbacks. And I think JJ McCarthy has gone to the perfect spot, to a new era of what offensive football looks like in the NFL. And I think JJ McCarthy is in that perfect spot to be able to succeed. I don't think he's feeling this tremendous amount of pressure of you got to get everything right now. And that's why I think also, the culture in Minnesota is tremendously more supportive than a lot of these other places. They have a more patient coaching staff and as well as a more patient fan base. And that really does matter for a young quarterback. It really does. Look what happened with the Patriots. Look what happened with Mac Jones. He had a really solid, dare I say even good rookie year, Pro Bowl, all of that. And then things just started collapsing on him. The fans chanting, Bailey Zappi or whatever, and Bill Belichick, just all he does is have to look at you and you feel like you're about to throw up. And it was just the culture and the fans and everything. He just started to get crushed. And he became a shell of himself. He didn't know what to do, where to go, who to talk to. He saw outside coaching, which then that made things even worse from, inside. So things unraveled. And it's not to say that I think Mac Jones is this unbelievable quarterback, or if he went somewhere else, he would be, Joe Burrow. But you can see these are kids. Like it or not, people love to say, oh, they're adults. They're 23, 24. Your brain is still developing. Your brain is literally still developing up until 26, 27, 28. Like it's still maturing. Okay? And so that stuff does matter. We like to act like, oh, well, you know what? They get drafted. They get paid money. They should be able to handle it. The reality is the more you watch sports, the more you realize that you at home probably have a stronger willed mind than a lot of these athletes. And the reason of that is because no one has everything. You just don't have it all. How often do you see a guy who's like 6'3", insanely good looking, charismatic, happy and healthy, has all the money in the world, and is a super genius and really funny? It doesn't happen. It does not happen. It's just like the way the universe balances itself out. So you have a lot of these legit bona fide athletes, and a lot of times they're like a little bit weaker minded. And a weaker, don't take that as like as too much of a slight. It's just on a spectrum between really strong-willed and not strong-willed. And just because they can put in the work, just because they can work out and do the reps and do all that, that doesn't mean you're mentally tough. It really doesn't, because I got news for you. Once you get into the system, the machine that is of sports, a lot of times, man, you are just going with it. I mean, all the crazy stuff that I did throughout the years of me playing, there was just so much crazy stuff that I reflect back on that I'm just like, how did I do any of that? And people could say, wow, that was really impressive. I can't believe you did that. You worked real hard, this, that. And it was like, I just did it. What do you just did what you were asked to do. From the moment I was 3, I was playing sports, and then I didn't stop. And when I played for this team and that team and this coach and that coach and this team and that team and over here and over there, you just do it. And luckily that I was a pretty strong-minded person. But again, some of the athletes that I played that were even better than me, that made it farther than me professionally, I had way better mind than them. I was way more resilient than them. And I always found that really fascinating. It's kind of the idea of street smarts versus like regular smarts, right? And we know the stereotypical super genius who also now has no social skills. That's what you see in sports a lot. And I'm not saying that JJ McCarthy is weak-minded. I'm just trying to emphasize how important a supportive environment can be, especially if you're not this big-time, flashy, kissing your bicep type of quarterback. And so I think that's why I think JJ McCarthy and Minnesota is such a match made in heaven. It's a very, and Harbaugh's not some like easy coach either. He's a tougher. I feel like he's kind of a hybrid between an old school and a new school coach, which is what also makes him pretty interesting. I think he's both hard and supportive in a lot of ways. Like Sean Payton to me is a little bit less supportive of a coach. He's willing to embarrass you in front of the whole team, like he kind of did with Russell Wilson in a way. And before they even got into the same room with each other, right? That's some of these other younger quarterbacks. I'm not so sure that they could succeed in that environment. And so that's why I really think JJ McCarthy has an incredibly bright future ahead of him. I think he could have wild success with Minnesota. I think he fits Minnesota, the city. I think he fits the culture. I think he fits the coaches and the players. They have some really great personalities in Minnesota. They really do. They have some boisterous or, a little bit more outspoken weapons, but not in a way that gives me the vibes of like the old school TO or even Diggs causing trouble back in the old days. Like, that's what Minnesota did. They were like, all right, Diggs, we know you're an amazing player. You are not fitting us culturally. Let go of someone who's as great as Diggs. It really is. So I just think Minnesota is doing everything right. I think they drafted the right quarterback. The quarterback that not only will fit them from a system perspective, but also personality and culturally. And that is really what I'm banking on. I think we have to look sometimes beyond just the skill set. If it was just the skill set in college and translating that into the NFL, it would be the easiest thing to predict who's going to succeed and who's going to fail. And the top 5 quarterbacks that are drafted, 1 through 5, would all be successes. And there would be no busts, no issues whatsoever, because they would just know. Heck, you would be able to just plug it into your computer, type in the data, and then boom, it would spit out who's going to be great and who's not. It's not that. There are a lot of factors at play. A lot of factors that we're not even privy to. The conversations that we have no idea. And that's why, on outside looking in, it just seems to me that JJ McCarthy is set up to succeed. I'm really excited. I don't know how long it's going to take for Minnesota to hit the ground running, but I could see them becoming successful very quickly, if it's not this season, at the latest by next season. But I really think that they could be trouble. They were already a pretty good team, even and fighting, had some pretty great fight with them, even when they were kind of just ripping through quarterbacks. Now they have a quarterback who I think will be composed. Of course he's a rookie. Of course he's going to have issues. Of course he's going to have some terrible games, terrible moments where you just want to be like, oh my God, can this guy play? And then I'm sure he's also going to have moments where you go, that's the guy we want. That's the guy we need. So I'm excited to see what happens with Minnesota. Those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about JJ McCarthy and, the success that he could have with the Minnesota Vikings? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.